I think we found an answer to autism, how it happens, so we won't let it happen anymore.
Apparently they've found the cure for autism. As 31-year-old, late diagnosed man myself, I found it pretty strange because I didn't think we were looking for a cure. I didn't think we were looking for a cure for something that's taken me this long to even kind of understand it. And I live it. I thought we were looking for understanding and acceptance from society, and now with this stigma, not only is it completely false, which I'll go into, second of all, we went so far back now. It's almost like I felt like we had made some, maybe it's just my own naivety, I felt as if we'd made some level of progress. Maybe it's just my broken autistic brain, but I always ask, like, why? So it's not that I miss social cues. It's not that I have massive demand avoidance and I don't like getting told what to do. And I'll ask why I'm doing it. Why am I doing that? And if I don't think I should do that, I won't, and I'll question it. I've always asked questions, and I know that ADHD and certainly autistic people do that, whether they verbally question it or mentally. And I think that in itself speaks volumes. Because that's the type of people who are autistic, who innovate, who actually move the world forward. So to cure something that literally has brought this world so much further, an advancement of innovation, of technology, look at all of the CEOs that you know off the top of your head. The vast majority of them are autistic, or neurodiverse certainly, because they think differently. If we all thought the same, we'd all be sheep. And when it comes down to the science behind this, we'll look at literature of what's actually true, first of all. Only last year, there was a study done with 2.4 million people in Sweden. And it was a sibling study done which found no correlation, certainly no causation, but no correlation either on Tylenol, paracetamol, if you're the UK, and autism. And I just feel as if I feel passionate about it, and the reason why I've kind of veered away from my fitness content is I've got a bunch of videos and recipes and stuff to put out. And I was going to say, if you're not into that sort of stuff, don't subscribe. But at the same time, I do speak about just managing life as well as like recipes and fitness stuff with neurodiversity. So if you're watching this, maybe consider subscribing, because it isn't just me going to the gym, it's me living my life, which involves the food and movement that I do on a daily basis. Anyway, moving on. By saying, even though it's completely false, as I've just referenced, I should really look this up again, but if I've got the dates at all wrong, I will put on screen what the exact right dates are. But I believe Tylenol was invented in 1955, and I think it was around 1911 was the first autism diagnosis. So it's impossible that that's a cause. It's a very much genetic thing. And I've seen firsthand how difficult it can be to live with autism. I think the main difficulty when it comes to non-verbal autism and when people are majorly stimming and societally in public it's very difficult is because of the judgment of others, the lack of acceptance, which I think we've just went fucking backwards with now. And just the viewpoint of the whole thing. You can't be that autistic. There's no such thing as that autistic. You have autism or you don't. You're on the spectrum, but the spectrum is not a line. I'll put on screen what the spectrum actually looks like. You will fall into different categories for each one. And whether societally you've been able to mask enough where you can look normal or neurotypical, or not like you need fucking cured, doesn't matter. The internal struggle is still the same. Arguably, and this is just my own bias, the difficulty is harder for the people who have kids who are extremely non-verbal, and the hardest part for them is that when they pass, they don't know who's going to look after their kid, who's not a kid anymore, it's a fully grown adult. So there's parts of autism which, depending on what within the spectrum you categorise yourself to, are extremely difficult for parents. The harsh reality is, for people like myself who can sometimes hold eye contact, who have learned to mask, who I couldn't really speak to people for 25, 26 years, and it's literally only through iteration.
Dundee University student Sylvester Sweeney submitted a board game aimed at helping autistic children.
It basically encourages autistic children to interact on like a social level, even if it's not verbal, because a lot of autistic children struggle to verbalise themselves.
I couldn't film videos, I couldn't do this. It's a learned behaviour. I couldn't understand emotions, and through years of studying psychology, going to therapy myself, I understand it. And the difficulty I have here with this is the fact that people now have this stigma, everyone's got ADHD, there's a rise in ADHD, there's a rise in autism. There's no rise. There's literally no rise in autism. There's no rise in ADHD. On paper, there's numbers are rising, but the causation is very much genetic, and it's very much the fact that people just weren't getting diagnosed because we thought autism was one thing years ago, and we'd label people with autism and Asperger's and all of these different labels, when autism in itself is still trying to be understood but does not need to be cured. So there isn't a rise. The rise is just due to the fact that we understand it more. The fact that there is people like myself and others posting about it more who on the surface might not look autistic, whatever the hell that looks like, who have managed to mask enough to get a job and be self-employed, but you're so much more likely to fall into depression, have suicidal ideation, and this is getting morbid, but I've been there myself several times. It's fucking hard. And do you know who it's harder for internally? The person that has autism. So to get invalidated because you can speak is just ridiculous. The person who it's harder for is the people who have autism and have to go out alone because they don't have the support systems, arguably than the person who can't speak and their parents are there. It's hard for the parents, and it's hard for the person with autism, I'm sure. But do you know who it's even harder for? The person who has to go through it alone and kid on that they don't have it because they don't have it bad. It pisses me off because I bet you because of this lack of acceptance, this lack of understanding, we've lost people on this earth. Nearly lost myself. I didn't know what I was going to do for this video. I didn't know how I was going to put it. I didn't plan it out. I'm just speaking. I'm getting annoyed, and rightly so, I think. But when you're emotional, you can't think logically. Just because one thing's true doesn't mean another's not. Just because one person can't speak, can't go to the toilet themselves and will be in care for their whole life, doesn't mean that the other person doesn't have autism or doesn't have it as bad. It's just different. And until we understand that, until we put things in place where people can work better, we can innovate more, we can encourage people to maybe start their own business if they don't think they can do a 9-to-5, which is something that I'll talk about in some time to come. But that is something that it just racks my brain. And if you're new here and you want to learn about dealing with life as I try and deal with it, then consider subscribing. I'm going to be posting a lot more about this, ADHD, neurodiversity, having good solid nutrition and living a life that doesn't feel so all over the place. But to end, we'll never find a cure for autism because it doesn't need one. That's how